There's an old Chinese prophecy or parable, or just truly a story that I want to start my speech off with. So there's a teacher that takes two students, and he brings them up in front of the class and has them sit facing parallel, side by side, looking at the class this way. He then puts an object in the middle of the students, telling them not to look at it yet. And then when he says so, he tells the students in the front of the class to turn their chairs in and look at the object. The student on the left looks at the object, and then the teacher says, "What color is it?" And the student says, "Oh, it's black." He then asks the other student on the other side, who says, "I don't see how you see black. It's white. It's white. It's just white." The teacher then gets the students to stand up. He gets them to stand up without looking at the object. He then has them switch places, sitting still in front of the class, and then he moves the object around in the center, so they're still seeing the same side. The students, though, think they're going to see something differently, see the other side or see something of that sort. So the student that was originally on the left, who has then switched sides, looks at the object and says, "It's black. It's a black object." And then the student on the left says, "No, it's white. I don't understand how you're seeing black." And they get into this debate saying who's right and who's wrong. Now we can take that and kind of lead into what we see going on in the United States. And really, not even in the United States, but just the world right now, this mass media influx of not knowing which news is correct news. I think really all of us, especially students and young adults, are really starting to see this play out because of the election this past year. I'm not here to talk about who won, who should have won, or what really happened and what went down, but more so the effect of all the events that happened and took place throughout it. All of us can easily say that each news source had an angle and a side to push. There's very, very, very little news that is just pushing out true news. So you can look at CNN, who had, they have their views and they really just push this side. You can say the same for Fox. You can say the same for literally even BuzzFeed articles that you see on Facebook. Everybody has an angle compared to the truth that they're just putting out. And we don't know what's real and what's not. So especially during this race, like you would hear things about Trump that would then come out to be not true. You would hear things about Hillary that would then come out not to be true. You would hear things about statistics that came out not to be true. And so we don't really know what's going on anymore. There was a survey done by Gallup in 2011 that I found very interesting that I wanted to use for this discussion. In 2007, they interviewed 1,020 adults to ask them what were their views on media slash news and if they believed it or not. 32% of them said they trust the news or have a fair amount of trust in news itself. Now, there was no option for just fully trusts and fully believes. The top item was has trust or fairly amount of trust in the news. And that was only 32%. That's 326 people out of the entire 1,020. And they asked anywhere from adults, the oldest being 77, to young students, youngest being 17. But still, out of that 1,000 or so people, only 326 said they even maybe fairly trust the news. And that just says we don't know what we're believing. We've got different things coming from this angle. We got things coming from this angle. And we're not sure what's going to be true and what is not. Or what is going to be true and what is not true, excuse me. Denzel Washington was given a little interview on one of his movies that was coming out. I don't remember the name of the movie, and it's really unimportant. And we can quickly say, well, he's a movie star. What does he know? We can, kind of discount his credibility here. But he made a point that was really, really well done. He was simply asked, what does he take from all the effects of the politics between Trump and Hillary? So, I mean, this little speech was back in December, so it's still very new. And he said a quote that was absolutely perfect. He said, "If you don't read the newspaper, you're uninformed. If you do read the newspaper, you're misinformed. There then becomes the problem of who is first and what you hear first." And today, that's exactly right. And that's our big problem that we're facing. For one, not only do we not know what's true anymore because there's just so much being pumped out that we hear on a daily basis, but the other issue is that 9 times out of 10, we take the first thing that we hear and place that as true. Almost kind of in this postmodern belief that whatever we believe or just whatever we hear first, we just automatically give more credibility to, or we just believe it as truth. So especially as Christians, just give you kind of a real life application to this. When we're in church on Sundays, or if you're just hearing a message or a sermon preached by someone on a Wednesday or whenever, it could be your regular full-time speaking pastor or just one of the other pastors on staff. It could be somebody who's coming in that's just there to fill in a slot or something on a Sunday. But regardless, after that person's done speaking, how many times do we go back to see if what they spoke about was true? Now, I'm not saying, obviously, if a pastor goes up there and is just speaking some sort of absolute, incredible, weird heresy, we're going to spot that out. But how many times, even if we know that it's true or we feel like it's true, do we go back and check just to see for a fact, like, okay, the scripture that he used really does coincide with this other scripture, or that does play into effect, or I do see that as true because it also says this in this scripture passage. We just take whatever he says as that's true. And that's wrong. We as people are deceiving ourselves that we are starting to make our own truth in what we hear because we don't give any debate, or we don't give any critiques, or we don't go into any study of it. So not only just for the world, but really as Christians, we need to give more thought, more look into what is truth. If we just hear something and we don't really put too much, study into it ourselves or whatever, we can't claim that as correct. And specifically when it comes to Scripture, we need to be very, very careful about that. That when we think we have a correct idea of something, or if we think we have a point down, that we don't go ahead and go broadcasting that as if we know that we think it's correct and push it onto other people as it's correct. Because if we continue in this cycle of whatever we hear, we take as truth, and then whatever we say, if somebody else is taking that as truth, we are just spreading false doctrine and lies everywhere. And so the big problem that I see that's going on nowadays is we don't take the time to really validate truth. What we hear and what we think is true, we make truth because we just believe it is. And that's wrong. We need to spend some more time really digging in and looking into that. So I say this for Christians and churchgoers and adults and students alike, but I also say that for the rest of the world, that it's not just the United States, but it's all countries seeing and believing whatever they see and have come through their eyes and their senses from news or reports of other people as truth, because we just believe it too easily. We don't give enough time to really look in to figure out what is correct and what is not. Anyways, guys, thank you for always being a captive audience. Appreciate it.